Welcome back to the social work race. It's good to have you here. We're engaging in this topic around social work. It's Curtis Powell here. We're talking all things social work, whether you're a student, whether you're ASYE, whether you're newly qualified, whether you are senior. You have a role to play in this podcast. So welcome. Please share. Please subscribe. And if there's a bell anywhere on any platform, hit that bell. But it's so important you share this with others because we're having really kind of interesting narrative and professional conversations around social work. So please share it because it will help you and others, and it will help me. I mean, I'm honestly being helped by just addressing some of these topics here. And today we're looking at an interesting topic: the power of relationships in social work. If you ask me, this is our most powerful tool when it comes to social work. And we can always write an assessment, whether we do it really well or not. But that assessment is only a part of the work that we do as social workers. What we want is a quality intervention. What we want is, even beyond that, we want service users to work with us. We want to see a result. You know, when we go into social work, I think a lot of us will go into social work with the aim to help someone. And one of the barriers to helping someone is their cooperation, because they don't have to work with us all the time. And that is sometimes a psychological burden. And so in my opinion, and there are so many studies out there that show that a good working relationship with a family or a child is really what gets the job done. I just wanted to read an article to you to help substantiate this. It says here, research from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child found the most important factor in the success of services provided by a care professional is the quality of their relationship with the family in question. When practitioners know how to connect with families, they're able to listen and discover what's really going on beneath the surface. They will build trust and find ways to explore solutions together. Then life outcomes for children can be transformed. Now, it sounds perfect. It's not that perfect, but to be honest with you, that's our best shot. That is absolutely our best shot. This happens to be one of my strong suits anyway, building relationships. Even then, I don't always get it right. Sometimes there is an invisible wall or barrier to building relationships with an individual. Sometimes a parent or a child just does not want to know. The article goes further to say, this is especially hard, though, in a system that encourages box ticking rather than relationship building. And that often demands a focus on a family's weaknesses rather than strengths. So, you know, no one's going to be chasing you up, really. And this is the truth. As a social worker, nobody's going to be chasing you for the quality of the relationship that you're having with a family. They're going to be chasing you for not completing assessments on time, or doing your visits, or ticking the boxes in the system, right? But it's the relationship that really does get the job done. And as I'm working with young people or adolescents, without a relationship, we don't have anything, and we can fake the work. You can do that, but for those of us in this work, we want outcomes. I want to see a child or a family turn a corner. I want them to turn their corner. And I know the only way to get that done is not to just produce an assessment explaining the problems, but outside of the assessment, to really connect. When you make that connection, the world for them changes. But just to add, for a quality assessment anyway, for an in-depth assessment, relationships during the assessment process, which is at the first stage of meeting a family, is so important. And so, at that earlier stage of meeting a family, have you focused on building that relationship? And I want to give you some tips as to and some themes around building relationships that I personally experience or do, because I said it's one of my strong suits, and even then I haven't got it locked down. There's so much more to learn, and in fact I'll forever be learning. What I tend to do, tip number one you could say, is I tend to meet the parents first, or engage well with the parents. Now, the method I'm going to suggest to you actually takes a lot more time, but it is better in the long run. It pays off. So you may spend more time working with a family, more time probably than you have, but you end up getting better results at the end, or the best results at the end, even if you're unsuccessful. So I meet the parents first. I try to gain their confidence, and I do that by listening to them. Now, to be honest with you, I'm a good listener, and sometimes that plays against me because it takes up too much time, but I'm getting the job done. So if they know that you are listening to them, they will immediately often trust you. They've let off their steam. And a lot of the time, you're going to hear them complain about previous social workers who dipped in and dipped out. I was with a family today, and they had a number of social workers. Some were sick, some changed jobs, and within less than a year, they've had about 5 or 6 social workers. So when I walk through the door, there's a disconnect, partly because of my title and partly because of their lived experience. So how do I build that back? I listened. Eye contact, all of that communication, that skills that we learned in college. Let them know that you're listening. But so although it takes a long time, sometimes it smooths out the journey. Makes the job easier. But you have to recognize as well that some personalities aren't suited to meeting families, and a lot of the time, because we don't know who they are, we read on paper how and who they've been, the risks, the negative aspects. You'll never really read the positives. So families can always have, or more often have, like a negative outlay for us, and so there can be apprehension into wanting to meet them. But we push past, and sometimes I try to forget what I've read. Although it's good practice to kind of understand the family, I've learned over time that what I've read isn't necessarily what I'm going to experience. And that is something that will always surprise me. And so sometimes I'm working with a young person or a family, and I'll say, on paper, the risks are high, but now I've met you, I can see why and what, and how can we work with this? And because they're building trust in you, what you've read on paper isn't necessarily true, or maybe conflated because the previous social worker just didn't really have a relationship and made presumptions. That happens. We're human. There's always going to be that room for error, So that's why we build relationships, so that we can get the truest picture of the family as possible. Then you can just sit back and work with the family. It makes working with the family so much easier. So I would say that you should really learn how to just build relationships with people in general. And that can come through simply speaking with strangers at times. Again, listening, connecting, and what do we call it? When you're communicating back to let them know that the word slips me. Shame on me. The word slips me when they're talking to you, you are giving them the feedback that you're actually listening. But somebody will remind me in the comments or in a message somewhere. Shame on me. So that's something I wanted to just encourage you with. In my opinion, and according to many studies, it's the most powerful tool we have in getting quality social work done. Thank you so much for listening. This was a short encouragement. I always encourage people, live what you know to be true. Don't try to do everything. Just do your best with what you have, and sit back and let it flow. Take care of yourselves and the rest of the world. See you next time.